Hi, I'm Louise Gallagher and I'm the host of Dear Boldly Art. This is my studio, so welcome. Today, I want to take you through the process of creating a 2-page spread in an altered book journal. An altered book journal is a book that you actually create pages of art in by using the pages themselves as the substrate of your work. It's a great way to use those books that are on your shelf that you haven't used or read in a long time. And it also is a great way to add some interest and different textures to your painting, because sometimes you can let the words flow through from the book if you so choose, and you just get an interesting look. And it's a great way to just keep it all together, like this. The book that I'm working in, the art book, is a journal that I started after my mother passed away in February of this year. When my sisters and I cleared out her room, we found stacks of prayer cards that she had used throughout her life to guide her nightly prayers. And she prayed a lot. It was what she did. Praying for her was like singing for others, like making art for me. She just loved to pray. We didn't know what to do with the prayer cards, so I brought them home and decided to create an altered book journal using the prayer cards. In this art journal that I've been creating, called My Mother's Prayers, on every page, one of my mother's prayer cards appears. On some of the pages, you can see the prayer card, like here, whereas on others, I've just painted over the whole thing and the card is barely visible. It really is about what appears on the page versus what I think I'm going to create. For me, it is the essence of that card that comes through the art. So I don't have to have it visible, but having it there is my way of honoring my mother, her devoutness and her belief in the Catholic faith, and also our journey together as mother and daughter, which was sometimes very complicated. So this is my way of honoring my mother and also of healing. So I hope you enjoyed this session. I look forward to getting your feedback if you feel so inclined, and to sharing more as time goes on. See you in the studio.
I'm trying to get into my world, but I am in it already, just in and out of what's around. I am ashamed of how I feel.
This is my sidekick. A sidekick is a book, in this case, just like my altered book journal. It's a book that was on my shelf that I hadn't used in a long time. But the difference with a sidekick is I use it to wipe off excess paint off my brushes, to sometimes just collage in pieces that I'm not going to use in my actual artwork. But it covers up, mostly, what was on the page. And eventually, it could become an altered book journal itself. I start by choosing one of my mother's prayer cards, which I'll then collage into the page using gesso. Being fearless is essential in art journaling. Don't be afraid to tear things up and to rip them apart and rip off the edges. In fact, ripped edges fit better into the page as opposed to a straight edge.
I cover up my own depression and anxieties to put everyone else at ease. When will I listen to my head? It's speaking to me, but I always shut it down. I think everybody else is more compelling, and guess that I never
It can be really easy sometimes to let the critic, that guy in your head who has lots to say about how you're doing things wrong, well, it can be really easy to let him take over. It's important to stay out of your head. Get in your heart. Stay fearless, curious, fluid. The guide I have for creating this page was something I wrote just before I started, which included a line about my mother's prayers falling like petals and angels' kisses. So I'm not thinking about where I'm putting things or what I'm putting down. I'm really just going with the flow, staying in the process of creating and not trying to force the creation. There's no right or wrong way in this creation piece in an art journal. There's really just the way you create. The way is the path. It's important to have fun, to not take yourself too seriously, and to just let things happen. Let appear what is appearing. They aren't really rules, but there are guidelines when you're creating. One of them is that it is good and important to have a focal point. Here, I take the little image of the mother and child that I had affixed to the page, and I decide that I'm going to create a frame around it to draw the eye to that piece and make it a focal point. I'm also conscious that it's important to have an interesting background, and the drywall tape with the white paint, it really does make it interesting, so I really like it. And so I pick up the tape and I move it around and I turn it over so the white paint comes down on the page. Again, just to add interest. I may paint over it later. Because the page is about angels' kisses and prayers falling like petals, it's calling for wings and maybe even an angel.
That the things in my head are proven right time after time. And people like the way I think. Yeah, people love to hear all the moving pictures playing on repeat behind my shouting eyes.
I feel like the page has come far enough that I could write the quote on it now. As soft as an angel's kiss, her prayers fall from the heavens like petals, blessing everyone. And then, as can happen, I decide that I need to add some depth to the right-hand side of the page. I think I'll add some lines as if they're God light coming from the sky. And so I start to do that. Let me tell you, I'm going to confess, it did not turn out to my liking. It ended up looking really messy and grungy and not having the drama that I was looking for. I also realized that in the painting with the white, I've really messed up the face of the mother and child. And so I need to take some of that paint off, and I use 90% alcohol, which is why it's really good to have that matte medium. Remember, we put it on at the beginning. It's really good to have it on here because it makes it easier to wipe it off without tearing the paper. See that right-hand side up at the top? It really is grungy and dirty looking. So I think, what can I do to fix it? Oh, what if I add some flowers? So I draw in some flowers. I'm not sure they're working. And this is why it's so important to stay fearless, curious, and fluid, and non-judgmental. This is all about experiencing it, not making it right, just the experience. It's important in the creative process to pause once in a while, to sit back, take a breath, and just wonder. What's asking to be seen, known, felt? What's waiting to be discovered? As I pause and take a look and wonder, I look at the angel's face and how the frame around the mother and child feels like it's an antique kind of look. And I think, that pleases me. And so I decide, I think it's time to just stop. The background isn't as busy or dark or messy. It's lighter. So it's time. Time is a good thing to acknowledge when you're involved in the creative process.
I'm trying to get into my world, but I am